I have an echo.
Hi, welcome to Recovery Solutions. This is Amanda Marino, and I have a fantastic special guest today. How are you doing, Carolina?
Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Up to 50% of individuals who struggle with eating disorders, abuse, substances, and 35% of individuals who abuse, alcohol and substances tend to develop or have had an eating disorder. So this is such an important topic. I appreciate it.
It's such an important topic. And what I was sharing with you prior to talking on the live is that there's a lot of information out there. We can imagine we're going to have people on here that have no idea about eating disorders, or people have misinformation. And hopefully we can help shine some light on some real, backed information and expertise in your area. So tell me a little bit about you. Who are you, and what do you do, and how did you get to where you are today?
Thank you. So it's a long story, actually. I'm originally from Colombia. I graduated as a psychologist in my country, and then I got married, came to the States, and had to kind of like find a way to get my license here in the States. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I became interested in eating disorders like around 2007, so it's been a while. I worked at a treatment center for eating disorders and became really, really passionate about, helping, women in general and men. I now in private practice work with more, males. And the kind of like landscape of eating disorders has changed a lot, throughout time. So it's been really interesting. I'm working now with little kids, which is, scary.
Yeah,
Right?
that's scary.
Yeah, like my youngest, client has been 7 years old. Like that's really.
What was he? I'm sorry. You say I talked over you. My apologies.
That's okay. I was saying that my youngest client has been 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
My oldest client has been 82 years old. She had an eating disorder since she was 11 years old. So I became really passionate about it, and I got involved with IADEP, which is the International Association for Eating Disorder Professionals, even helping
IDEAP. I'm going to type it in here.
IADEP, yes.
IDEAP?
I can send it to you. IAD. Oh my goodness, it's so hard. Let me write it down first. So it's IAEDP, IADEP. It's the IADEP Foundation. It's actually the website.
In the chat. So if anyone has questions about eating disorders today, Danielle says hello. We'll show her.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I love Danielle. She's so amazing.
She's a doll.
Yeah, she is.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for connecting, Carolina and I. So if you have questions for Carolina while we are on this live, you can post them in the chat, and then I will address them when in a pause. So just want to put that out there. When you see someone at 7 years old coming in, what can you explain, like where some of that is coming from clinically? I'm going rogue, but I'm just.
So eating disorders are complex, disorders, and as of today, we don't really have one explanation on, their development. Mm-hmm. It's a combination. We have the biopsychosocial theory, which is that there's a genetic component. If you have a parent who, had any type of psychiatric mental illness, depression, anxiety, a history of substance abuse, or have had an eating disorder or schizophrenia, they're going to be more prone to developing an eating disorder than those who don't. Then we have the temperament, which is, anxious kids or kids who have, more sensitive type of temperament. They are going to be more likely, not likely, but the combination of different factors, to develop an eating disorder. And then we have the social component, which is, we live in the diet culture. Everywhere you go, you see advertisement for diets, the latest, workout, and we have shifted from a society that is focused on thinness now more to fitness. So
diet culture is so toxic. When I found that like hashtag like F diet culture, there's so much on there, right? And it's we're brainwashed as a society, and they're targeting the young people, you know.
Yeah, and kids even, younger and younger have access to social media, right? So, and once you get kind of an algorithm going, your feed is gonna be, showing you many short little videos with big messages and very subtle messages about how you should be looking like or who you should be to
Right.
be accepted, to be loved, to feel confident. So yeah, we live in a society that promotes diets. It's a part of a multi-billion-dollar business.
It is a big business. As a parent, you know, I have a 19-year-old son and I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I'm sure some people that are watching, you know, have children or have had their own struggles. What can a parent do to provide a healthy atmosphere in the home for their children to not, you know, because I've seen, and a few friends of mine, their daughters or sons developed some body issues because of dialogue and things that were mentioned in the house. Maybe it wasn't the only component, but you know, parents constantly talking about weight and dieting and these things. Like, what can we do better moving forward?
You mentioned some of the things that we can avoid, and is criticizing your body, other people's bodies, making comments about fat people, or people in larger bodies, right?
Right.
Correlating wellness and fitness and beauty and success with being feed ID, right?
Right.
I think that monitoring, social media, and really taking a look and talking to your child, not only about what they are looking, but a lot of these Instagram, like people on different platforms, um, influencers, that's their, full-time job, right? To, promote, fashion and, so, like beauty products and diet things. And so having a talk with them about the risks, right, of listening to all these different messages, promoting a more balanced and realistic, to be quite honest, sense of beauty and wellness.
Unique. It's unique. Like, love our children's uniqueness, you know,
Yes, yes,
sizes. You know,
yeah.
I try to not give compliments to my daughter, especially that are based, you know, body or beauty. I try to, oh, you're so smart, you're so creative. Like, I try to focus on things like that. I never talk about weight. I never talk about like fats. Like, just because I had my own little short stint with some body dysmorphia, but it was enough for me to gain enough knowledge of what to try not to pass on to my kids. You know, and it was because I got caught up in that whole fitness diet culture thing for me, you know, and it was toxic.
Absolutely. And I think that everyone, I'm going to say that, is influenced by that. So we have to, be careful with, the way we approach it, and obviously giving, our children a reality check, how unattainable are these standards, what's behind them, the medical consequences associated with eating disorders, especially for kids and teens. They really affect their, psychosocial development, and especially if they start before puberty, it's really detrimental, like at any age, I would say. But
It's so hard to be a middle school or high schooler as it is, right? And add all these other things, these other pieces. Like, it's so complex these days. Like, my little girl was starting middle school and I was terrified. You know, she was excited. I'm terrified, you know, just because I know what these years can bring, you know, and it's scary. It's scary. So we can, you know, we can make choices in the home, from what I'm hearing from you, that
mhm.
might help. Do you see this comment from Dr. Mitchell Roth? He says, dieting is part of the problem. Read obesity, our weighty problem, and the cure for comprehensive and research-based treatment of this issue.
Absolutely. And that, brings me to an important topic, and it's how we need to, when you suspect that someone, and our blog, my practice name is Home for Balance. We have several checklists, for people who suspect that, they or their children might have an eating disorder. So that's kind of like, if you suspect that you have one, reaching out to the right professionals. I just started, working with a client who's pediatrician, told her to lose 10 pounds. And, she was caught up in, like took it to an extreme, like in a couple of months, she really lost a lot of, weight, and now can't, seem to be able to stop. Obviously, there are many layers to these disorders, but, visiting professionals who are informed and skilled into treating, these disorders is really, really important.
That actually, I have a personal experience with that. So my son has always been large. He's a massive child. He's 6'3" now and huge and built. He's always been a big boy. I remember a doctor when he was 11 or 12 telling me that his weight was way too high and he was considered in the obese category, but he was built differently in front of him. And I was so upset. I never went back there again. I mean, to say that in front of a child, like if there is a genuine concern about nutrition or something along those lines, talk to the parents. Don't talk to the parent and the child. That can just hurt. He cried when we left there. He was devastated.
Can you imagine? It's horrible, how they feel and the way they process this information in, their brains at a very, susceptible time. Like this is a time where they're trying to fit in, find a group of friends, they're getting a sense of who they are, how they feel in their own bodies, developing a relationship with, their bodies. So it's critical to, kind of like put boundaries around, the information that they are receiving and the feedback from other people. Part of the, diet culture is a lot of people commenting on like your body, right? Like people feel the right, like, to say, oh, you have lost weight or you have gained weight or, so a lot of kids receive that and end up, obviously becoming very insecure about it.
Right. And
Or
it's
reinforcing, an eating disorder. If they already have an eating disorder and receive these type of compliments, obviously it's going to reinforce it. So you never know really who.
like dopamine hits to them. Like, oh, it's like it's hitting those receptors in the brain that are that rewarding, oh, I'm skinny means good. Like, I don't want anyone to ever tell me you look skinny. Please don't say that to me. Say I look healthy. A much better term for me. I want to know I look healthy, that I look happy, things like that. Here's a great question. What are the most common warning signs of an eating disorder in teenagers, and how can they be differentiated from normal adolescent behavior?
Okay, so when kids and teens start to really worry about weight gain, fearing if they gain weight, stepping on the scale, monitoring their weight, monitoring their food intake, counting calories, obsessing about going to the gym, can take a rest day. They are very preoccupied about their bodies, doing a lot of body checking, right? Like changing a lot of clothes, not feel and expressing dissatisfaction. I don't like this, I don't like that about my body. They start to restrict. Sometimes for many teens, restriction might lead to overeating or binging, and so you get trapped in this cycle of dieting and restricting during the day, and then at night obviously they are starving, and they end up binging and sometimes purging. So keeping an eye on them, having again open conversations about their thoughts about weight, their bodies, what friends are saying, other adults might be saying to them, what they are looking on social media. All of those things are really ways of kind of like detecting if they might be struggling. And early intervention is key. The sooner you let this like kind of like in the open and under control, the better.
No, that's such a great point, because there is like the question, there are going to be the normal adolescent behaviors, the self-doubt, some uncomfortability in the body, things like that. But you just gave some clear descriptions on, how to start to pay attention, have open conversations with your kids, keep that dialogue, keep it safe for them to come to you.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, Manda, if you don't know the little things, they're not gonna tell you the big things. Right. So I think that is so important, just when you pick them up from school, hey, how was your day? What's going on? Like really listening. Sometimes, and I have that when my kids were growing up, I was busy as well. And, we all, have a lot of things on our plates, but not being on the phone, like really listening, validating, the challenges of being part of, the diet culture, and, what's going on at lunchtime. Are they, eating? Hey, what did you have today? Tell me, who did you sit with? All of those little things help you kind of like create a relationship where you can have a bigger impact and influence on them, and also pick up little, messages that they are,
Yes.
receiving, or struggles that they're having.
And promoting like activity, you know what I mean? Promoting like, making sure kids are in sports, making sure they're, playing outside. Thankfully, I live in this neighborhood that has a nice cul-de-sac and kids actually play outside here. And I love that, promoting, there's ways that we can promote health in all different ways. So what are the specific eating disorders now? Because it has changed a lot. The landscape has changed a lot over the years. And I think people may be confused. Like what if they are questioning, like, okay, I'm struggling, maybe I'm being obsessive with food, or I'm checking my weight too much. What are what are some specific eating disorders that people could look out for in themselves or their children?
Yeah. So we have anorexia nervosa, which is more, the child who might be counting calories, restricting their food intake, over exercising, because they are afraid of, gaining weight. We have, and they tend to be below, their weight for their height and gender. We have bulimia nervosa, which is, when you're using compensatory behaviors. Let's say, for example, using laxatives that, and if you have, like your regular medication cabinet in your home, and you notice that they're using laxatives or these teas. This one client abusing these teas that, they sell at Publix, using, diet pills, or we have so many supplements and laxatives that they sadly have access to.
Mm.
So bulimia is more engaging in those, binging and purging behaviors. We have avoidant and restrictive food intake disorder, which is RFID,
Okay.
and that one we can, because of medical concept,
Well, your sound is cutting out a little bit, Carolina.
a little bit, right?
There's some maybe is it the internet or
Not sure. Let me take a look.
I just want I feel like it's really important what you're sharing. I don't want to
I know.
right now. It sounds good right now.
Sounds better now?
Yeah, it sounds better.
Okay. And so we have, RFID, which is avoidant and restrictive food intake disorder. We see that diagnosis mostly, in kids who are, very sensitive, and, they might be sensitive to textures or smells, and that leads to a lot of food restriction. So they don't struggle with body image and fear of weight gain, but more, with, I don't like the way the food sounds in my mouth, or they might have had, like a negative experience, an adverse experience. Let's say they choke on food, or they had like food poisoning or nausea, and now they're afraid of eating, right? And we have OSFED, which is, I always have that one changed actually recently.
Yes.
Um, and it's other specified feeding or eating disorder, right? And that is more um, kind of like um, disorder eating to an extreme, right? And is struggling also with body image. And I wanted to say that, people don't need to look a certain way to struggle with an eating disorder. You never know who is struggling, right?
True. So true. When I was at my leanest, fittest, everything was when I was the most miserable. And that's when I sought help. So that was what triggered me. Like I thought I'd get to this place and I would have arrived, right? And that was the place where I was like, I need to get some help. And I saw a specialist for that area and worked through it in about 9 months because I hadn't gone too far. I caught it early intervention, but it's not whether you get to a weight or a size or a number or a this or a that, it is not going to fix the underneath.
Absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that, because there is a lot of symptom substitution when you are in recovery from an eating disorder or from, substance abuse. I worked, as I was telling you at the beginning, I work at this treatment center for eating disorders. And, I noticed that a lot of it was especially for women, like it was and a lot of them also struggle with substance abuse. I wanted to learn more about that. I ended up going to a different treatment center for substance abuse and working with the women who I was again working with the women. But I want to make sure that I say that is not exclusively for women. Like men also struggle with eating disorders. And I think that's important to say.
They do. I had a live. I don't know if you scrolled down, but I had a live with my trainer friend who, in his recovery of his addiction, had to come to terms that there was a key component of body dysmorphia. So I wanted him to talk about that. He's a very fit man. He's a trainer. This is what he does every day. But him talking about that in a public forum is going to help other men to not be ashamed of it. Because I think it's okay for a woman to have it now, but it's not okay for a man to have it. And just I'm grateful that you said that. Thank you. Because that leaves space for all of us to know that we all can struggle with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, even kids and, older adults. So it's not exclusive, for, women, but, I worked, with these women and, one thing that I noticed was, the women running up and down the stairs or binging, it was kind of like an open, dining room, and they were, having a lot of food now. So that was interesting also to see kind of like firsthand, and working with them, realizing they were, I always say that it was kind of like the same monster with a different disguise. Yes. Different costume, right? So it was a lot of escaping your feelings, numbing them, avoiding them. And it makes sense. A lot of them had trauma. And when you're struggling with PTSD, right, you don't have the skills, you're trying to survive, you're trying to make it, through the day, you're right. Trying to find some sort of, pleasure to cope with depression or anxiety. So
yes, so true. And I have worked with, we've done some long-term, companion cases with, primary eating disorder or some coaching along with the professionals such as yourself, consulting the case and leading. And it's definitely some of the harder population. And some are, eating disorder as well as substance use disorder. And I know one I worked with had the orthorexia. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, orthorexia is not a clinical diagnosis,
but
it's the way we call when people become obsessed about where the food is coming from, right? Is this healthy? Is this organic? And what is this food going to do to my body? And they become, really, they might or might not have necessarily an image concern, but it's more the preoccupation with the quality of the foods that they are eating, which can lead to a lot of restriction, limitations, isolation, because then you're worried, I don't want to go to this event because what are they going to give us to eat? Mm-hmm. Is this going to be from like an organic place or not? So people become quite isolated and concerned about those things. And medical consequences of eating disorders increase depression and anxiety, rigidity, obsessions.
This question. What are the long-term, so I have a second question. We're actually answering it right now. What are the long-term physical and mental health consequences of untreated eating disorders in adolescents? But I'm going to say for us, for this all.
Yeah. So one of the things that, eating disorders have a lot of medical consequences, from changes in your brain chemistry to for women, loss of their period. And the longest you go without a period, the less likely you're going to be maybe to have a child, right? Like it puts you at risk for infertility. And again, I don't want to say that everyone or generalize this information, but those are some of the medical consequences. Also gastrointestinal, in terms of bone health, A lot of people die from eating disorders. The second high, disorder with the highest mortality. The first one is substance abuse, when people die by overdose, right? Or medical consequences associated with, their addiction. So when you have an adolescent, they don't treat these, eventually, for example, I had one client, she had osteopenia, which is the step below, kind of like below osteoporosis, which is kind of like making your bones really weak, like you're more prone to fracture them.
I know that.
Yes. So, and she was 16. She was 16. So can you imagine, this is also a type of consequence or illness that older adults struggle with. So obviously, when you go years, decades without, psychiatric, mental health, or medical care, as to help you overcome your eating disorder, these obviously the medical consequences are more severe, and the eating disorder is more entrenched. Like, obviously, it becomes, and we use kind of like a concept called externalization of the eating disorder, right? So it's kind of like seeing the eating disorder separate from you to help you fight it.
Yes.
So the eating disorder becomes more, like a stronger and more prevalent.
See, I could be some of I've phone calls with so many people or conversations. I remember one family I spoke to. It was something that we could not work with or take on. It was far too severe. This family had a very young daughter, had been to every kind of program. I think the identity was the eating disorder, and the comfort was in all of the medical care, constantly being hospitalized, being underweight and told that having it, like, that became part of what was the comfort. And it was like, my heart went out to this family. I didn't even know how to help them. I tried to give them a couple, national resources that maybe they hadn't tried, but it was probably one of the more sad phone calls. And basically the young woman wanted to die. She wanted her parents to just let her die. And I don't know if you saw that New York Times article a while back. Did you see that, about the woman that just wanted to be treated in hospice for her eating disorder?
Yeah,
That
it's
was
been so controversial, but I can even imagine also, for the person struggling, so deeply, and for their families. This is, and my heart really goes out, for a lot of the parents who are lost. They don't really know how to support, their child, young child or adult child. So a lot of the times, this is, and especially when we live in a society that, tells maybe even some individuals, oh, you don't have an eating disorder,
that's
right?
normal. That's what everybody's doing.
Yeah, you're great.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely some of the harder population to treat from, what I know as a overall perspective. So what made you want to work with this population, and then also get to know, like, the link between, eating disorders and addiction? Like, what drew you to this? Because it is harder. I mean, it is.
it is, it takes a village to work with individuals with mental illness. I think that with eating disorder, one of the things that I really liked was the treatment team approach, working with other clinicians, helping, this person from different angles. Um, what drew me to this, I think that I became really passionate, and the more I learned about eating disorders, the more I became interested. Then I worked at that treatment facility, for substance abuse, worked with the women, saw their struggle. There, I realized, okay, there is a lot of trauma here. So I became an EMDR certified, clinician to help them address also kind of like the underlying issues connected to their eating disorder.
I love that.
People with eating disorder are really, really smart, very intelligent people, very interesting. They have all of this potential, and they're so consumed by, their eating disorder. So I think that also having a lot of compassion, for these individuals, and because the disorder can be so complex, right? You're always forced to learn. So
Yes. No, that is. I still have I mean, and like what you said is, like, it takes a village. Like, we that's one of our, like, that's why I highlighted it, one of our kind of mantras, because sometimes they need a psychiatrist, a specialist for, their eating disorder, and maybe someone to work, maybe if someone isn't able to do both substance use disorder, eating disorder, trauma, like you have all of those things, which is fantastic. The family needs support. Then you need a dietitian, and then you need maybe somebody like from our team to help you go shopping and help you make the meals and help you stay accountable to certain things. So it does take a village. And like, I love the community approach. And that's one of the things I love that Danielle shared with me about your practice, like it is a comprehensive, you are able to help families with all of the things, and then the few things that you can't, we can partner on things like that,
Absolutely. We love, partnering with other, amazing professionals in the field. I think that I love that saying that, we walk each other home, right? Like we have to support each other. We have to, in general, as human beings, help each other, thrive. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you so you mentioned trauma. Is there any other things that are links for you between eating disorders and addiction?
we have done a lot of in addictions. I want to say that I have done a lot of work also with OCD, because that's another component here, right? A lot of people become quite obsessive and compulsive around foods and their bodies. Is more struggling with body dysmorphia. But in terms of addictions, I wanted to share that addictions and eating disorders share a lot of different factors, including brain chemistry, family history, tend to have low self-esteem, struggle with depression and anxiety, and also the social pressures, wanting to belong. We want to belong. Human, right? So that sometimes, and they also share, sometimes the compulsive behavior, the social isolation, and the risk for suicide. So
There's
I that
a gentleman on Instagram. I just wanted to chime in because I came over to Instagram because it's separate. She said, Discovery Place, Tennessee, thank you for this. As an all-male facility, we see these issues all the time. Sadly, many think that this is a women's issue.
absolutely, and it is so sad because one of the things that I have learned, or that has happened to me in my practice, is that when I see men, they come very, very late to treatment. Like they have been dismissed by so many professionals, minimizing their struggles, and when they come in, they are really struggling with their weight, their body image, the depression, anxiety. So I think that is important to highlight.
Absolutely. And then a woman, Connie, she said, I'm an alcoholic combined with eating disorder. Hi, here from Montreal, Canada. So just wanted to kind of, because I have to go to a separate page to go on the Instagram. So I just wanted to come over here and check if they had any questions.
Great. I'm glad to hear that people from Canada are listening to these.
Yes, I am in you in recovery. I said, thank you for sharing, Connie. Are you in the recovery journey? She's in the process. Well, congratulations. Please message Carolina, or myself if you have any questions. We can help you with some resources. And that goes for anyone else as well.
Absolutely. I was say that the Alliance for Eating Disorders Awareness, it's a nonprofit, and they have a lot of different resources. IADEP also can connect people with professionals who specialized in these type of disorders, because especially when you have an addiction and you have an eating disorder, you need to find a professional who can treat both. And it changes the way you assess, diagnose, and treat what's these two disorders. So we can do like work on your addiction recovery, and then in the meantime you're binging and purging. Like that is
common. So
very common.
It's the one place they feel like they can control. And then I had a woman on my podcast who actually runs my podcast, not this one, but another one I do in studio, where she came on and she's like, I feel like it's almost more accepted to be an alcoholic or a heroin addict than to have somebody that someone that struggles with eating disorder. And like, she's like, I have to go to places and buy food. I can't not eat, right? Like you cannot use drugs, which it's easier said than done, right? But it was a different perspective. And it's true.
It is true. Yeah, because you can be abstinent from drugs and alcohol, but you can't. They say that it's like taking a lion for a walk 3 times a day.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen, and it's very, difficult, for many individuals once they are in recovery from, substances, to sit comfortably with their emotions. That's not happening when you have had, years of addiction. So a lot of these emotions come, like a waterfall, and the eating disorder shows up as a way to help them. And short term, it does. And eventually, obviously, this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah.
It's not, but it is, one of the hardest things, because I became someone in my personal healing journey, from trauma, from substance use, from body dysmorphia, from all the things in life. It was always like there's a solution. Like, I'm going to go to therapy, I'm going to do this thing, and then I'm going to feel better. And what I've learned is there's many things that are just sometimes sitting through the feelings, and yes, doing all those other things too, but they just don't. There is sometimes no fix, but just feeling through your feelings.
Yes, there is no magic cure, right?
Yeah, I was like, wait, I usually do this, 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 and I feel better. Why is this not continuing to work? And sometimes it works, right, over time, but sometimes it's just feeling through. And that's the most uncomfortable thing to do with anyone that struggles with seeking outside themselves for something else, just to sit through the feelings. At least.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like in recovery, it's peeling the layers, right? And then, you start to peel the layers, and it's going to be, that's why we call it a journey, right? And
Mhm.
to, go deeper into your own, healing and recovery.
So I was just looking down because I wanted to check your questions. I know you don't remember them, but this is a really good one, I think, that we haven't touched on yet. What are the key components of an effective recovery plan for someone dealing with both an eating disorder and a substance use disorder? What's a good recovery plan? Where can someone start? Like our woman from Canada on Instagram, like what can we offer her as a solution?
Yes, I think that having a solid, program for your, addiction recovery, and working with a professional who is, skillful into treating both, addressing the underlying, issues connected to your addiction and eating disorder, right? Part of that might be, trauma work. It's, learning how to tolerate your own emotions, how to self-regulate, how to assertively communicate with other people about, what's going on with yourself and in your relationship with them. When I talk about, having a sober, like, plan, like a plan for your sobriety, um, I like AA and NA. That's, it's available for everyone. I mostly, learned about addictions through, that lens.
Yes.
And I remember working with a clinician who taught me that there are 5 key actions. Working with a sponsor, working the steps, going to meetings, um, praying, right, or meditating. They say now.
Spirituality. Yes.
Right?
Spiritual connection. Something bigger and greater than you out there. Anything.
Exactly, having a spiritual connection. They say that praying is, talking to your higher power, and meditating is listening, right? So I
Yes.
really like those components, and I think that just in general, being connected with other people. Eating disorders and addictions tend to be disorders of disconnection.
I
So being part of a community, and, really connecting with other people, tackling vulnerability, telling them, hey, today's not a good day. I'm struggling. I have urges to binge or purge, or I have urges to, use. Really being able to tap into that sense of honesty, um, and sharing it with another human being.
And for anyone out there that questions the power of when you have a thought that I want to use, I want to purge, and getting it out loud, the power, it diminishes the power. I never believed that. I thought that was a bunch of, like, early in my years, I was like, that's a lie. That whatever. It literally takes the power away. It's okay to want to do these things, but you don't have to take the action to do those things that are harming you continually.
Going back to kind of like reviewing that concept of externalization, right? It's kind of like my eating, the eating disorder or the addiction is telling me, right? It's kind of like separating yourself from, from it, and it's telling me to use, right? I don't have to obey. right? I don't have to do whatever addiction or eating disorder is telling me. I have the power to acknowledge it, and by sharing it with another human being and going deeper, what exactly is going on, right? The
Absolutely.
human being is the symptom. It's telling me stop, go deeper. What exactly am I feeling, right? Am I
Yes.
like disconnected, sad, rejected? And dealing with that feeling is the answer.
Yep.
Using any type of symptom will provide a very short term, relief, but is not sustainable over time, is harming to yourself in your recovery, right? Is disconnecting from life.
It doesn't get rid of the problem, maybe momentarily. It does not, and then that stops working for people. Even that momentary, like, okay, I can feel like that outside of myself, but that doesn't last, and it's not sustainable, and it stops working, unfortunately.
Not sustainable. And the eating disorder and addiction always wants more. There is the physical dependency, and there is the psychological dependency that you reinforce when you fall for it, right? So these disorders are very complex, both of them, and again, it does require a village. But one thing that I wanted to let people know is that they are not alone. They're
That on Instagram, you are not alone. That's so funny. The same thing. I wrote that. You can't see it on the other stream, but yeah, you're not alone. And what are we did touch? You did touch on like the recovery aspect. So like, what is a recovery like for substance use disorder? What does a recovery plan look like for someone with eating disorder? Like, it can look very different, right? It's customized. At least in our experience, like having a dietitian that is, educated in eating disorder, having a therapist who's educated in eating disorder, possibly psychiatric care. Like, what do you recommend? And then there's support groups, like Eating Disorder Alliance has the support groups. Like, what else do you recommend? Or what do you recommend overall?
I think that you tap into all of that. Those are really, important key factors. I think that doing your own work, working on body image, right? Finding freedom into reframing some of those diet culture messages, challenging those thoughts on a daily basis, creating your own unique relationship with food and your body, and connecting with other people, finding meaning and purpose in areas of your life that brings you joy and satisfaction. There are books that people can read, podcasts. What is really nurturing your mind?
That's the thing. It's like you can carve and find your way, and you can do that with people. And if you're someone that's scared of the accountability piece, like I'll add in the part that we do, which we take people shopping, sit with them, check on them, like if they need something to that acuity of like a food journal, to share that, like, what did you make today, if we didn't see them on the days in between, or helping them with navigating whatever's being clinically recommended. Sometimes if they have the resources and they have the ability, and need that support. There's so many different things. And then as far as the substance use disorder goes, if people don't, if AA and NA aren't your thing, there's a lot other resources out there now. There's She Recovers, which means you can be recovering from anything, and it's for women. But then there's also, the Smart Recovery, the Refuge Recovery. There's Codependence Anonymous. I mean, you can go in so many different directions to find your healing. Adult Children of Alcoholics has been great for people that with substance use disorder. So there's so many resources out there, and you can try all the different things and try it on with your professional helping you, like your therapist and your core team, to see what's sustainable for you long term.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning all of those resources. You mentioned a couple that I didn't know existed, so I'm gonna look into those. And I really appreciate you mentioning the accountability part, right? We need somebody else to sometimes, take a look and challenge us on, our own, kind of like biases, little lies, excuses that, we make, right? And that can give room for, the eating disorder and addiction to gain, more kind of like terrain.
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to share this is very helpful. Over 9 years sober from drugs and alcohol, but still struggle at times with my relationship with food. My mother struggled with bulimia. Thank you for your vulnerability.
Absolutely. And it's very difficult when you have been raised, by a parent who also struggled, right? especially because a lot of the messages that you received, from, the diet culture and your family reinforce maybe some of these beliefs that you still hold. I wanted to say that I do a lot of family-based therapy for little kids with eating disorders. And one concept that we use is agnosticism of the eating disorder, which is we don't know what causes an eating disorder. And we know that parents don't cause an eating disorder, but I can see how, having a parent who struggles obviously makes it more, challenging.
Yeah, that's so powerful, and it is, and we can, I think that we all took away some key components that we can, move forward in our household. Like, thankfully, because of my own experience, those have been implemented. And one thing that I needed to do for me, and it was nothing personal to anybody, like, we have a choice, at least on Instagram, we have a choice what we see, and we can choose our algorithm. Mine was filled for years with fitness competitors and all that stuff. And now, unfortunately, I don't follow any fitness competitors. My whole feed is filled with spirituality, uplifting, and we can choose what we see and don't see to an extent. And if something does, if you're seeing something, even if it's someone you like and care for, that's triggering to you, it's okay to mute them or unfollow them, and you can kind of choose what you see nowadays. So to protect yourself, if you do see things that trigger you online, like, I just know that I wanted to be a fitness competitor because my dad was one, and my dad passed away, and I thought I was going to honor him and do that. And going through that, trying to do that whole journey, like, brought up so much stuff in me that I had never had. I wasn't somebody that had a lifetime of this struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I still protect myself from what I see. Thankfully, we have that ability today.
Absolutely. And I really like what you're saying, how on one hand, how I know that I'm having, it's kind of like echoing myself. So I apologize for that.
It wasn't for a while. It comes on and off. I know it's technology. We can't control it. We just have to go with it.
I know.
It happens. I've had times where I couldn't get on our lives for 20 minutes because of technical difficulty. So we didn't have that problem today. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
Okay, you sound clear again.
The one thing that you were saying was, mentioning values, right? And
Yes.
connecting to your values and really nurturing your mind, and so surrounding yourself with things that nurture you, right? That are healthy, keeping everything in balance, like fitness and going to the gym, exercising can be good. If that's all I do, then that doesn't, become, good or
If I'm not feeling well, make myself go anyways and not listen to my body. For me, if I don't make it, and guess what? Nothing changes. I used to think if I missed a day, that meant everything was ruined. If I miss weeks, I'm still fine. Like, I make it a consistent thing for health and for my mental health. But, like, I used to beat myself up if I missed a day. If I was sick, I would push myself, and, like, that's not healthy either.
Same, right? All foods fit. Carrots are great, but if that's all I eat, then it's not healthy. Pizza, hamburgers, whatever foods people might think, like, obviously to an extreme, if I eat those every day, again, it's not, healthy. But everything, all foods feed in balance, in moderation.
Yeah,
More
like good and bad food, like good food and bad food. Like, yes,
exactly.
I have my undergrad in alternative medicine, which was a big focus on nutrition. So I learned, a lot of holistic nutrition and traditional. So, like, we do want to we do need our nutrients, right? I'm not a big meat eater, so I drink bone broth and I make sure I supplement things so I want to make sure I get my nutrients. But if I want a cookie, I am going to eat that cookie and I am not going to be mad about it.
Absolutely. Cookies are fun, right? They're delicious. And it's part of, especially when you go out, with other people, food is always there. It's the way we celebrate, the way we connect, the way we've experienced, pleasure. So, it's very limiting when you start to, restrict or struggle or become so obsessed about, weight or, foods and things like that.
So I'm just going to ask one last question, unique. What role can schools play in identifying and addressing eating disorders among students? I don't think that right now, at least in my county, Palm Beach County, I think what they have is like their food pyramid and like what they serve the kids is not, it's gotten better over the years since I was in school, but I don't think that I don't think that they are doing any of this. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that we're at that place where these things are. We have brought this stuff with drugs and things like that into schools, but I don't think with eating disorders.
Yeah, and thank you so much for this question. I think that is so important, and we need to do more to change the way they are teaching kids also about food and wellness, health in general. Some schools, even private schools, have a green light and a red light based on foods that you should be eating and restrict or eating less than, and other foods that are okay to eat as much as you want, right?
Yeah.
So those things are not really helpful, right? And all foods in moderations, in moderation feed. And one thing that we can do, and we have done it, I know the Alliance also, the Alliance for Eating Disorders Awareness also goes to schools and gives presentations.
Oh, that's
Yes, and we have done
that's great.
yeah, we have done that also. Presentations on body image, eating disorders. So once a year, we have a handful of schools we go to and give out, these presentations for free. And again, if the schools are not doing this, make sure that you do it at home, right? That you talk to your kids about, what are they learning at school. Sometimes the messages that they're receiving through not only teachers and counselors but also from doctors.
Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
with my experience and what you shared, a client of yours experience, I try to like teach my children like hunger cues, too. Like, are you hungry? Like my daughter will like just sometimes come home and just have like a ton of like packaged snack. I don't know, have like an apple and have like a packaged snack. And like, are you hungry? Are you eating just to eat? And then also like, I don't know, Italians and in certain cultures, we're like told to eat, like taught to eat till we're like over full and stuffed. And that's not healthy either. Like if you feel full, you don't have to finish the plate. You don't, like the old school thing, like eat everything on your plate. Like you don't have to. If you feel full, you can stop and that's fine. Like I'm not going to force you. That's another thing that I think is old school mentality of like kids have to eat everything on their plate. But what if they're full? Then we're teaching them to eat past being full.
Yeah, and thank you so much for saying that. I think that listening to your body is important. Also knowing where is this hunger coming from? Is this hunger like emotional hunger or physical hunger?
So
Is this fullness, right? Physical or emotional? A lot of people when they are feeling full, it's sometimes, they are anxious, not really full, right? So where is this coming from? These hunger, fullness, cues,
yeah.
and addressing them accordingly, right? If I'm feeling, let's say, for example, if I ate breakfast at 8 and it's 3 p.m. and I'm feeling full, that doesn't make any sense. So I need to go deeper and ask myself, why am I full right now? Is this, maybe I'm feeling anxious or sad, something is weighing me, which is different than not being hungry. And sometimes we have to mechanically eat because, we need the fuel, right?
Yes.
So we want to make sure that, we eat, anyways.
So I'm trying to type in your website people to find you. I know your Instagram was included and different things were included on the links, but what is your website?
Homeforbalance.com.
homeforbalance.com. Okay, and where else can people find you if they have questions or they want to follow up? And do you work in state of Florida only? Do you work out of state? Because there's going to be people here all over.
Yes, I'm only licensed in Florida. I'm available via email too, and they can find it, through my website, and or send me a text. That's okay too, if they have any questions or they need to, be connected to a professional. Um, my office is in the Coconut Creek area, and I also work online.
Okay, awesome. And then I also can have like resources all over the country just because we've had, long-term companion cases with, people with different eating disorders, and we've had to find professionals in that area to partner with. But yeah, it's great to have you on here. I'm so proud of you for coming on. I think you are amazing and that the world needed to learn today and hear this quality information, have their questions answered, to know that they're not alone, and to know that there is hope and have some tools and some solutions to walk away with today.
Thank you so much for, the opportunity to, be here and share some information about eating disorders and highlight, how trauma can be underneath eating disorders and addictions. I appreciate it, Amanda, and thank you so much. You made me feel more confident than I expected.
Next, I'll come to your office and we'll make a reel together.
That would be great. I'd love to have you come to our office and meet our team. Thank you.
I love to go to therapist friends' offices and help them make their first reel. It's like a thing for me because I know it's not. I'm friends with so many therapists and collaborate with so many that's like an uncomfortable place for them. So like if you come, because it was for me too. I had Blake, my former business partner, come to my house and like make it with me. And then once he did that, then it was like different. And I come from a year, like a lifetime in entertainment. But talking to the phone for me was like terrifying. What am I doing? I'm going to sit and look at my phone and talk. It's just weird. So you did great. I'm really proud of you. And thank you so much for your time and your energy, and for sharing today with everybody.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And can't wait to have you come to our office and teach us how to do a reel.
I got you.
Okay. Thank you.
Recovery Solutions. I'm Amanda Marino. I host this on Tuesdays at 12:30, and then sometimes I take breaks. But we also have it recorded online, and we'll share clips on Instagram and TikTok. And you can find me at nextlevelrecoveryassociates.com or Amanda Marino Recovery on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the live on there. Hold on, it's still on in here. We're going to end it here. Okay.